This is a book chat that we are doing with Rhys Bowen today, an author that you are doubtless very familiar with, and who fortunately is familiar with two authors whose books we have coming up on virtual chats. Julia Spencer Fleming Tuesday on April 7th, and then Cara Black on the 14th of April. So Rhys, hi.
Hello, hi. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Sorry about the technical difficulty there, but we're all set. What would you like to talk about? Which book first?
Let's talk about Julia, because I know she's got a big day tomorrow, or she's going to be featured on our Jungle Red blog tomorrow. So let's talk about her right now.
That sounds wonderful. Tell us about the Jungle Red blog as a prelude to all that.
Well, we are seven witty, wonderful authors who write mysteries, and we have a blog called jungleredwriters.com, and every day we chat or we host other authors, and it's been described as the view with bodies. And yesterday we did our first Zoom chat, so now it really is the view with bodies because we're all live, so that was fun. And Julia is one of our members, Julia Spencer Fleming, and we've been looking forward so much to this new book coming out because Julia's had all sorts of great difficulties in life, and it's taken a long time, and now we're really cheering because the book's finally coming out and it's really good.
It is good. How many years has it been?
5 years, I think, since she had a book out. You know, she had a husband who got melanoma and got gradually worse and finally died in his 50s. So she had a long time looking after him, and then after that it was really hard to write. So now she's back in the saddle, and that's really good.
So she's in Miller's Kill once again, right? Her community
yeah.
in New York State.
Yeah, back with Claire and Russ, the thing I liked about this book was it's the sort of thing that I like to write and to read, in that it's in different time periods. We really have three different crimes that happen, 20 years apart, and Claire's husband, Russ, is involved in one of them in the past, and not involved, he's now a policeman, of course, not involved as a policeman, but involved as the prime suspect, and never really cleared. And so you have this hanging over the whole story, which I think is fantastic. The thing I like about Julia's books is her characters are so human and so flawed. They all carry a lot of baggage with them, and they're all battling their own past, their own backstory. And so you haven't got the hero in any of her books. You've got everyman in her book, which I really like.
I do too. Now, remind me, the first crime, I think, was in the 50s, right?
In the 50s, yes.
And then we go to the 70s when Russ is involved. So real time in this series is actually in the 90s, right?
Yes, yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that's important for the reader to remember that that real time is almost 30 years ago.
Well, that's the problem with a series. If you start, like Cara Black's series, we're going to talk about, this isn't her series, but she has a series that she started in the 80s, and she's only up to like 89 now, because you can't leap ahead 5 years, else your character gets impossibly old and quite undesirable, so you don't want that. And I think the same with Claire and Russ. We've been moving ahead steadily, but you can't suddenly leap to 20. Well, of course, she started writing this in 2014 or something. So, you know, it's you have to pretend it's not the present. You have to pretend it's her present. So the thing with this is the three crimes are identical and quite baffling. A young woman is found on a dirt road miles from anywhere, wearing a party dress, and no clues at all, no nothing. And so, you know, that's how each of the crimes is. We're led into that. So, you know, it's one of these really baffling, fun whodunits, as well as watching our characters handle. Claire's got her own problems, of course, in this book, because she's got a new baby, which of course requires attention. And those of you who know the series knows that she's an Episcopal minister, and she has her full-time job as a minister, ministering to other people. But she has a new baby, and she has the added complication in that when she didn't know she was pregnant, she was going through a really bad time of depression and drank a lot. So every time this baby cries, she wonders, is it fetal alcohol syndrome? So she's carrying her own tension anyway, and then to find the man she loved um, is involved in a crime that leaves a little bit of doubt as to whether he has any handling in the present crime as well as the one in the 1970s. So, you know, the thing I like about it is you jump between them, and it's very well done in that you do jump between them. Just when you're getting involved in one period, oh, you're back in the past again. So I find that fascinating. I think she did it really well.
You have had some experience with sleuths having babies and trying to work out what the right thing to do as far as sleuthing goes. In your Molly
Yeah,
Murphy series, I know that's
yeah,
been an ongoing issue for you.
it has, because once you have a baby, if you're a detective, well, she's a detective by profession, Molly Murphy. If you have a baby, you have to say, under what circumstances would I put my life on the line? Because I now am responsible for someone else. And so up till now, I found a crime that Molly could do that was had a really good motive for it. You could understand why she would get involved because it involved her family or it involves something to do with her family. But you can't keep on doing that forever. She can't suddenly find that her husband's in danger now and her child's in danger now. You can't keep on doing that. So it's become more challenging. I've
And
also had, yeah, I've also had experience with doing different time periods because the Tuscan Child jumps between World War II and the 1970s, and I'm just finishing up a book in Venice where we're going between four time periods. So that's this is why I like Julia's book because I'm doing that too, and she does it really well.
I know that you like challenges. I would end this by saying that there are a lot of surprises in Julia's book, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she's going to do as a follow up.
Oh yes, me too. Yeah, I'm so glad that she's back on track and she's got the enthusiasm and she's got the drive to do this because it's really hard coming back when you'd started a book and then you have this great gap and a great gap of tragedy and then suddenly you have to come back and finish the book and you have to think, well, where was I going with this? So, hooray for Julia. I'm delighted. I'm really sorry that she's not able to do her book tour and everything else that she's going to do. So I hope these talks can get people rushing out to buy the book
I
at
hope.
Poison Pen.
Thank you. Well, I hope so too, since her signed copies are on their way. Before we talk about Cara for a few minutes, tell me who else are the blog members for your Jungle Red blog.
Oh, well, there are seven of us. So we have Hank Philippi Ryan, Hallie Efron, Lucy Burdett, Jennifer McKinley, who I think is coming to your store tomorrow. Who have I left out? Deborah Crombie, Julia, and myself, seven of us. So we represent a good spectrum of the mystery genre in that, I do historical, Jen does funny, Hank does suspense, Hallie does suspense, Lucy does cozy, Deb does police procedurals set in England. So we're a good mixture.
You are a good mixture. Now, Cara Black, I know that you gave a blurb for her wonderful new book, which is a book she's wanted to write for years, but is not part of her regular series.
No, I have a copy. I have the advanced copy sitting beside me. Da, 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 da. Yeah, I was so thrilled with it because she's been talking about doing a big thriller for a long time. She loves her series. She loves MA, but she's running out of arrondissement in Paris. And also, she wanted to spread her wings a bit. She wanted this to be her breakout book. And of course, she had this lovely tour planned and everything. And now, of course, she can't do any of this. So I'm trying to spread the word, as everybody is. She was on Jungle Red Writers yesterday as our guest, and she posted her favorite pictures of Paris, which were really lovely little evocative pieces of just various corners of Paris, because she goes over about twice a year, and she just soaks it up. All of her books, you can tell that she knows the place well. That's what I really like. Sometimes you read a book and it's set in London or Paris and you think, they haven't really been there, or they've just been there on a tour for 3 days. Cara, everything in her books happens because she was walking past and she saw something and she thought, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder where that alley leads. And then, so therefore her books are terribly authentic, terribly detailed. This is, of course, time period I love too, World War II. And there can never, for me, have books about World War II because everybody has a different story. And this is a thriller. This is a real 3 Days of the Condor type thriller in which you hold your breath on page 1 and you don't breathe out till the last page.
I was going to say, you really wish that she hadn't missed her shot, but without that, you couldn't keep
Yeah.
going. I thought it was interesting that she starts it in Scotland at Scapa Flow, with a terrible event, and the majority of the book is in Paris, and I agree with you that you can see details and her love for the city,
Yeah.
even projected back to the early days of the war. But there's always that hook back to England or to Scotland,
Yeah. Well,
which I found
I think she
fascinating.
had to bring in that because she had to give the protagonist a really good motive for the putting her life on the line to such an extent that if she died, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Um,
I
and it's,
agree, but the point is that she's not French.
no,
She's and I like books in which a person who is an outsider is looking at a city. I think it's different. Ma is Parisian, so whenever we read Ma,
yeah.
we're with
Well,
her.
May is half American, so
Yeah, that's
that
true.
I mean that's so she is. I mean, I think she's like my Lady Georgie. She has a foot in both camps. Lady Georgie is aristocratic, but has a Cockney grandfather. So both of her environments she sees as an outsider. And I think Aimee had that to a certain extent that she saw Paris through the eyes of a half American. Never truly, if you're not truly French, you know what the French are like. You're not French. So even though she speaks perfect French and she has the little black dress and she actually knows how to tie a scarf, which I mean is that means she's definitely French. And she has high heels and she drives a little pink Vespa. So I mean she's more Parisian than the Parisians, but she still has that little tinge of being an outsider. But in this book, this is a complete outsider, really, isn't it? I mean, she's someone who um, she has some experience of France, but uh, she's a complete outsider, and she knows Paris well enough to get around when she has to, because she's doing a lot of getting around in this book. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. I think this is a hard one to talk about without giving a spoiler, because all we can say is this is a woman who puts herself in harm's way in the biggest way you could possibly imagine and spends the rest of the book running and not knowing who is friend and who is foe.
I
Does
think
that
that's a
sum
very
up?
good summary. You've also, made a good point, which is that I think of Ma as Parisian. I had totally forgot her American mother is so absent from the whole thing most of the
Yeah,
time that I just never even considered that she wasn't Parisian. How interesting. But that's one reason we read books and talk about books, isn't it? Because we have different appreciations and
yeah,
understandings.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, thank you, Reese. It's been wonderful. Thank you
Oh, thank
for
you.
giving both of these authors a little push. I want to say to our viewers that both of them have been kind enough to sign books and ship them here to the Poison Pen. So if you're missing seeing them in person, at least you have a chance to connect through this discussion today and with an autographed book. So, au revoir.
Au revoir. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.